The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to another edition of My Music, the not too serious music quiz, which offers Ian Wallace and Denis Norden, making up one team, and on the other team, John Amis and Frank Muir. So first, Ian, something for you to identify. It's very easy, so for the other half mark, when was it composed?
Danse Macabre.
Scots gentleman, yes. Macabre. Yes, Danse Macabre by Saint-Saëns. And a stab at the year of publication, or the year of composition.
Well, it must have been somewhere in the last quarter of the 19th century.
No, not quite.
Oh, not quite.
You couldn't be nearer.
I couldn't be
nearer without being right. Yes.
Well, in that case, it has to be 1874.
That's right. Yes. I'll tell you something interesting about Danse Macabre. It included the first use of the xylophone in the symphony orchestra. Not the bit we heard, but another bit. Anyway, Ian gets us off with a mark. Dennis, a slightly unusual question for you. You'll be pleased to know.
Easy.
Not far from your office, Dennis, which I happen to know is situated in Piccadilly, a sequence of 12 notes was played over and over again, together with a 13th note, which was described as a rogue. These were the notes. And the rogue note was... The question is very simple. What am I talking about?
I don't know. Were you out there busking at Christmas?
No. It's indoors.
Indoors?
Yes.
Oh, I was going to say it might have been that there's a clock outside a very posh grocery shop.
Yes, there is.
And there's the Chinese exhibition.
Aha! How clever of you to think of that, yes. Does that ring a bell?
No, I haven't been able to get near the queue.
Oh, well, had you been, you'd have got your other half a mark, I think. The 13 famous bells in that Art of China exhibition at the Royal Academy of Arts, Piccadilly, during the winter months of 1973-4. A rogue bell is one which is out of key, out of sequence with the others. The bells actually were in that exhibition, and a recording of them was played constantly while one traipsed past that particular part of the exhibit. John Amis, an unusual question for you too. This is just the last chord of what? The clue is in the last second or two of that.
What it suggests to me is a bit about half a side of an old 78 in on Also sprach Zarathustra by Richard Strauss.
You've got it, yes. Known in its film persona as... in its film sense known as what?
2001.
And mark to you. Frank, we've had a last chord. Let's try you out with a first chord.
This is flinging the veil back at the vestry door and facing the aisle. It's the wedding march.
Yes, by...
Mendelssohn.
Yes, drawing a bow at a venture. Yes, that's right, Mendelssohn's Wedding March. The first unmistakable chord. And mark to you. This next round concerns musical instruments. Ian Wallace. In my attic at home, I found an old violin covered in dust. Imagine my excitement when I discovered written inside it the words Francesco Guardi, Cremona 1780. How do I know it's not a genuine Francesco Guardi?
Well, it probably would have been better if you'd found in your dusty old attic a dusty old picture of a violin.
You got it, yes.
Painted by Mr. Guardi.
Mr. Guardi was a painter, not a violin maker. Guardi, 1712 to 93, and you get a mark. Denis, Chopin composed his F minor concerto using a piano owned by Prince Radziwill. But that piano had what we would consider to be rather unusual pedals. What was so odd about them?
I don't know, unless they were at the other side. Because, you know, they get those things where they're recalled by the manufacturer for defects, like cars or something. Or else it could be Chopin's great and good friend Georges Sand knitted him a kind of pedal cozies. So they were the only Fair Isle pedals in wherever Chopin. I don't know, what was it?
Actually, I think you've got a mark, Denis, for ingenuity. They were knee pedals on Prince Radzivill's piano, not foot pedals.
Why had he very short legs, Prince?
Well, Shorty Chopin, they called him. Anyway, I'll give you the mark, why not? John, here's an all-star instrumental group for you. Titian plays the double bass, Veronese is the viola player, Tintoretto the violinist, and Jacopo Bassano plays the flute. There's another viola player to be seen as well, and scholars think he might be Palladio. Where can you find that highly artistic ensemble?
Why, they're playing at Ronnie Scott's, aren't they?
Even Ronnie couldn't afford that group, I think. No. Try again. Have a guess.
Probably on a Palladian villa.
No. It's at the Louvre, and it's The Marriage at Cana by Veronese, which contains these instrumentalists and his friends and rivals among painters. Frank, what is, or conceivably was, a serinette?
It's a small feminine serin.
I find it difficult to deny that.
That's one mark then. Well, it's an instrument.
Yes.
Musical instrument. Played in the evening, as in serinette for wealthy widows.
No, if you knew the word serin, then you'd be able to
Serendipity,
work out...
comes from salon, and it's a kind of kazoo, where instead of having tissue paper across the little grill, you have a piece of Celanese.
Well,
am I warm?
Well, you're about as
Well, let's give up yet.
You're about as warm as Denis was, and you've got a half mark so far. A serin. Anybody in the audience know what a serin is? It's a kind of bird, yes, it's a kind of yellow bird. A serinette, Frank, is a mechanical instrument for repeating bird song in order to teach it to a live bird.
You spit on a cork and rub it up against a milk bottle.
Actually, what really happens is hand-operated bellows turn a cylinder, somewhat like a pianola action. It's an 18th century creation. Time for my piano medley, and for the contestants working in teams of 2 to write down, if they can, the 6 tunes I play in their particular medley. This time they're waltz medleys. Ian and Denis, you get half a mark for each correct title. Here we go. You'd like to start with the last one. We'll start with the first one, please.
Live, love and laugh.
Or live, laugh and love, yeah. All right, yes. Okay, then...
I've got Matt.
Yes, you're right, for a start.
Matinata. Is
That's
it Matinata?
It. You've got it, Matinata, or 'Tis the Day. Yes. Yes. That's it, yes. And then?
And songs my mother taught me.
Yes, right. You're going to get them all, I think. Then?
Somewhere there's a place for us.
Well, yes, but from
West Side Story.
Yes, good. Two more.
Smile a while.
Yes, but what's the title?
Until we meet again.
Thank you. 10 minutes later, you get to the end of the song. That's right. And finally, Ian.
Well, that's the teaser.
Yeah.
Titwillow.
Yes, Titwillow from the Mikado. 3 marks out of 3. Well done. Very good. All 6 tunes. John and Frank.
Got one.
Not Titwillow, but in the same sort of area.
You might have got the first one, I think, Frank.
I've got a drawing.
It was a sort of Placetoble type.
Yes, well, yes, it was a quick waltz kind of thing. Yes. Did you get the first one?
No.
No, Love Is Where You Find It.
With love is where you find it.
That's right. Then came...
One of those thin Hollywood voices I hear. Then came...
Then there was an even more Pasodoble like Pasodoble. Wasn't España, was it?
No, but it starts with the same 2 letters, a yes.
Oh, then it wasn't the piece by Wood Devil or Waldteufel.
Waldteufel, yes, it was.
Which is called...
Yes.
España.
No, that's Chabrier, isn't it? No, Estudiantina so far. Then came a...
Waltz of My Heart.
Thank you. Very good, Frank, yes. Then...
A perfect half mark.
There you are. One for John.
Then there was a piece of Ravel which went by so quickly.
Well, yes. But
was it La Valse?
Yes, well, if it's in waltz time, it was a waltz medley, so it's a fair bet that it was from La Valse, yes. Da-dee-da-dum, da-da-dum-ba-da-dum, yes. Then, again for you.
Serenade for Strings by Chag.
Thank you. Yes. And finally, Frank.
A latter version is Bless Them All.
Yes, thank you very much. 2.5 marks. Well done. This next round concerns dedications. Dedications by composers to whoever or whatever it was. Ian Wallace, who dedicated what to Glorious John? And who was Glorious John?
Glorious John? This is either going to... we're either going to just do nothing about this, or... I'm getting a very, very good hint from the other side of the table.
Ian, as you're leading,
the conductor comes into this somewhere.
No, Ian, as you're leading anyway, give this one up. It's only a mark.
Give it up with
What's
pleasure.
A mark between friends?
Absolutely.
Rafe Vaughan Williams, dedicated to Sir John Barbirolli, his Fanfare for Glorious John.
Ah, very nice. So one conductor to another. It was a very kind of John Amos. He's given you a nice tribute. Now he's trying to help me.
Yes. Glorious John again.
Dennis, try this unaided. Why did Beethoven tear a strip off his 3rd symphony?
That's another mark gone down the drain. Well, I should think it was in the interest of conservation. He only went up to the middle of a page. We thought, I'll tear the bit off and keep it for my 4th symphony. He literally tore a strip.
Well, yes. He got mad. Don't forget, this is a round of dedication.
Oh, yes, he dedicated it to somebody.
How clever.
And changed his mind.
Yes.
Why would he have changed? Somebody said Napoleon. Somebody in the audience
it wasn't Brian Clough.
I have learnt over the years, which I never knew before, that the Eroica is there. So
I only ask you about the Eroica Symphony.
Oh, you only ever asked? Yes. Well, he'd written it down wrong, and it read erotica. No, I don't know the backstage gossip about it. I feel smug enough at connecting number 3 and Napoleon and Eroica
I'll tell you,
together.
the buzz is this. The buzz is that he dedicated it to Napoleon, who then proclaimed himself emperor. So even he is no more than an ordinary human being, cried Beethoven, in German, of course, tearing out the dedication page and making it just his Third Symphony instead. John Amis, what was composed to the glory of God and dedicated to the Boston Symphony Orchestra on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of its existence?
It's the Symphony of Psalms by Igor Stravinsky.
You're right for a mark, and let's hear a bar or two of that magnificent finale.
That way.
Bar or two.
It's a most marvellous piece.
Yes, because I like it.
One of the best pieces written this century.
Yes, well said. I entirely agree. And it would be nice if somebody were introduced to it through this programme, perhaps. Yes.
It was in Boston that they did a review called, I think, The 7 Ages of Women, Billy Rose review, and Stravinsky was invited...
7 Lively Arts, wasn't it?
7 Lively Arts, quite correct. Stravinsky was invited to write a ballet for it. And he didn't go to the show in Boston because he was in Los Angeles. And he received a telegram from Billy Rose saying, ballet great success, would be even better if reorchestrated by Bennett. Signed Billy Rose. Telegram went back saying, content with great success, Stravinsky.
Yes, Robert Russell Bennett was the orchestrator of Oklahoma, another great successes, wasn't he?
He was the one who did most of the orchestrations for that show.
Lovely, yes. You got a mark? Frank, try this without help from John. To my friends pictured within, can you name just one of the friends? Bit of an enigma, isn't it?
The Enigma Variations.
Yes, so name one friend.
By Elgar.
Yes.
I don't know whether you realise that Elgar's name is the Spanish for the railway station. The Enigma Variations were addressed to several of his friends.
The question was, can you name one of them?
Nimrod.
No,
Nimrod.
I thought you might have even guessed that he'd dedicate one of them to Lady Elgar, but you didn't.
But I don't know who Elgar's friends were.
Lady Elgar, Nimrod, as you mentioned, Jaeger, Mrs. Powell, all sort of Lady Lag, and all kinds of people were involved in it. I really can't.
And of course, Norman Igmar himself.
Oh yes, and Igmar. Thank you. Some music concerning animals, insects, or birds. Let's just say living things.
Animals, insects.
Ian, which creature is this? And for the second half mark, could you give it a colour as well?
It's,
John knows.
Yes,
my friend John.
What a prig you are.
I don't doubt that's not a great deal of help to me.
It comes from
He doesn't sing like Ian, though.
It comes from Rimsky-Korsakov's The Coq d'Or, so the golden cockerel. So cockerel would have got you half a mark and gold the other half. That's no marks. Dennis, again, please. Animals' identity and its colour.
the Pink Panther.
The Pink Panther, yes. So you get half a mark for Panther and half a mark for Pink. Henry Mancini's film theme turned later into a cartoon series for television. John Amos, this is from a song, though somewhat truncated. The identity of the animal, please, and a brief description of its favourite environment.
Now married and father of 10, he murmurs God as he watches them grow, and he longs to be single again.
The creature and its environment.
Mud.
Yes, and the animal?
Oh, my dear chap, it's an elephant.
No.
No, I'm sorry. Hippopotamus, my dear chap. I used to go to school with Donald. I had plenty of time to perfect the imitation.
You get no marks for the answer, but a full mark for the imitation of Donald Swan, who I thought was inimitable, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, up to now, I would have said so, but no longer. That's absolutely marvellous.
It came from Anderson Swan's sequel to the Mud song that Ian knows so well, At the Drop of Another Hat. 1 mark. Frank, the identity of the animal, please, and a word or two as to its genial nature. Any idea?
I don't know.
That's it, for half a mark. Yes, the Ida.
Opera by Verdi.
You know, the Ida is correct.
The other.
And its genial nature?
Sweet as apple. Hi.
Ida, yes, that's actually the other half mark. Mark to you. This being the final round, we have a little full-blooded singing from Ian, which we save up till the end. In the meantime, a slightly different idea this week in that the audience has to guess something. You're going to hear an instrumental introduction, orchestral, and then you have to guess whether the voice you hear singing immediately afterwards is that of Sir Geraint Evans or our own Denis Norden. Dennis, just to play fair with the audience, would you please put your hand over your mouth so the audience can't see your lips moving? Right, here we go. Okay, boys. Very good, Dennis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I give you the downbeat, would you please say either Norden or Evans, right? Norden. You're absolutely right. And you've won 2 marks for Denis Norden.
Didn't see my lips move there, did you, boy?
Norden the sing. John, for your 2 marks, will you please sing something, anything you choose, from the same opera as the one in which Dennis was so magnificent just now?
Dies Bildnis ist bezaubernd schön, wie noch kein Auge je gesehen. Ich fühl es, wie dies Götterbild mein Herz.
Can I desist?
Well, Sir John Amos, you got 2 marks. Frank, again, Sir Geraint Evans will oblige with an opening passage, but this time, when he stops, you come in, please. Right?
Put a bit of powder on it, Father.
Or...
Put a bit of powder on it, Father. Let me beg of you. Ever since the weather's gone cold, it's gone red, white and blue. Put a bit of powder on it, Father. Put a bit of powder on it. Do. And ring up the curtain.
Well, yes, all right. Thereupon the Pagliacci begins. All right, 2 marks. Ian, Sir Geraint Evans starts you off with a middle bit, and you carry on with the song. Ready?
Non ti avrai quei pennacchini, non ti avrai quel cappello, non ti avrai quella chioma, non ti avrai quell'aria brillante. Nowadays of philandering are over. Far too long you've been living in clover. And at last they've begun to discover that you're turning the house out of doors. Yes, at last they've begun to discover that you're turning the house out of doors.
I thought you might like it translated from the Welsh.
It's a pity we have to turn the house out of doors, but we have to here. It's the end of our show. A victory by a mere half mark for Ian Wallace and Denis Norden.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Frank Muir, Denis Norden, and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the programme was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
You've been listening to My Music from the BBC, heard each week at this time. This is the WFMT Fine Arts Network.
The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Greetings to you with another edition of My Music, the game that sets in competition on one side Ian Wallace and Denis Norden, and making up the opposing team John Amos and Frank Muir. Some musical identification first, and a tribute, Ian, to the amateur orchestras of the world, those who play the great masters and sometimes beat them. The lovely thing about that is when the horn player broke down, everybody started singing la 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 come to his aid. An amateur orchestra from somewhere in Britain, Ian, we won't name them. What were they playing?
Oh, I mean, they weren't that bad. The tune was very recognisable.
It was filled with admiration.
I mean, that horn part, I believe, is very, very difficult.
Exactly, very exposed, as they say.
Yes, very exposed. It's the overture to the Barber of Seville.
That's right, by
Rossini.
Thank you. Yes, a mark to you.
Hearing that horn player, Italian conductor who was once sent to conduct an orchestra, not quite like that, but it wasn't very good, way down somewhere in the provinces in Italy, and they had said to him, Maestro, the horn player is very difficult man. You don't want to get in conflict with the horn players. A very dangerous man. He carry a knife, and very easy. You say something to him, he get out of the knife. This was simply because the horn player was very bad, and they thought this would just avoid any sort of confrontation. So they started the rehearsal, and the horn player played rather like that. And the conductor said, no. We start again. Very calm, we start again. 3 times it started again, and always it was just like that. And finally, he went over to this man and undid his own jacket and put it aside. He said, "Kill me, but go."
Denis Norden, some music for you.
Yes, very good. Well, that's not like Mike. Go and run now. Let's settle it off, I'll get it going.
Denis, this is a bit of a memory test. A few weeks ago in this programme, asking you a question about this tune, I told you quite distinctly what it was originally called. Can you remember?
Well, that's not... This is supposed to be exams, not revision. Well, we're going to have to remember that I've only just have to remind myself that it's as Ian always says, the Barber of Seville. Yes. And I keep saying the Barber of Seville. Yeah. No, yes, it wasn't called Purcell's Trumpet. It was Jeremiah Clark's Trumpet. But, don't be offended, Steve, but... I don't really pay all that attention to what you say afterwards. If I get it right, good. If I get it wrong, the hell with it.
You just wait for the compliments for your singing, don't you?
No, I can't remember it.
Well, why don't we give you half a mark for Jeremiah Clark? Its original title was The Prince of Denmark's March. And the version there under the name of...
What, Peter Sellers?
Yes, Peter Sellers. Mark. John Amos, what's this? Piece of real Teutonic schmaltz. What is it?
It sounds like a bit of gypsy music, like Brahms or, Dvorak more like, but played Charles Ives fashion, with 2 orchestras in 2 different rooms, but too near not to be able to have a schlomozzle.
Somewhere between them you'll find the person who wrote it. Somewhere between Brahms, Dvorak on the one hand and Ives on the other, in period.
Between Brahms, Dvorak and Ives?
Don't think you know. You? Pardon?
Mahler.
Oh, Princess Mahler.
Yes, you got it. That whisper came from yourself. Mahler, yes.
That.
Which symphony?
First.
Thank you. Yeah. Who held up one finger for Frank?
Lady in brown, front row on the left.
Yes. Frank.
Thank you, madam.
Frank, which movement?
Third.
Yes, that's right. So giving him the Boy Scout salute. The third movement of Mahler's First Symphony. I suppose I can but give you a mark, John. Well, half a mark, right? Half a mark.
Half a mark?
Well, you didn't know which symphony, did you?
What do you mean?
No. You've been winning altogether too much lately. Frank.
We'll soon put that right.
Frank, a little problem for you as I ask you to identify the musical instrument being played.
It's the cor anglais. it's always the cor anglais. Come on.
Frank?
It's the nose. It's the...
Which instrument was being...
It's the cor.
It's the cor anglais, yes. You have a mark, you see. You said you would, and now you've got a mark. That particular bit, if you heard any of it, comes from the guitar concerto by Rodrigo, Concerto de Aranjuez. I mentioned it in full because we played another part of it in an earlier program some weeks ago, and I had an absolute storm of letters from listeners asking what it was. I don't think I've ever had quite so many inquiries about a piece of music in this series as we did about that. Concerto de Aranjuez by the blind Spanish composer Rodrigo. It's from the version by John Williams. Let's move on. Here's a mathematical type of question for you. I have in my home, gentlemen, a grand piano, perfectly ordinary one, full size, but not excessively large or excessively small. See if you can guess how many strings there are on my piano. It's not a trap question, but remember, of course, that there does tend to be more than one string for each note. Ian, how many strings on my piano?
Oh, goodness.
Just a quick...
Well, some of them have got one, the big thick ones down in the bass, and then they tend to have two a bit higher up, and then they have three nearer the top.
That's very true.
There's about 13 notes to the octave, counting the black notes.
Going to make a long job of this.
It will, you know. So far, I'm setting out the facts of this. About 104 notes. Now, how do we divide them between one string? I think we'll have about 10 or 12 at the bottom with one. So that's yes. So that's 12, and then we'll have about.
I remember I said to the producer, this will just be a quick question.
40, yeah. So we'll have, that's 80, and about. It's about 242.
242, says Ian. At long last. Dennis, how many?
I don't even know how many strings you've got on your violin. So. I don't know, but whatever it is, if Ian says 242, knowing you, Steve, you're bound to have spares, because you always carry spares. So I would say you've got 250.
250, a prudent type, that's me, with spares. John Amos, how many do you think?
285.
285, yes. And Frank?
He probably hasn't got any at all. The Afghans have been at him. I reckon there's 84 keys, right? I reckon they average out at 3, so I say 252.
252. Well, my piano has 7 octaves plus 3 notes. Bottom strings, as Ian said, are single. In the tenor register, there are double strings, and then the strings are triple up to the top. The total number is 225. Ian is the nearest with 242. He gets a mark. Over to the studio piano now, and 2 tunes, or snatches of them, that have a word in common. I might play, for instance, Kind Sir, You Cannot Have the Heart, followed by My Kind of Town, in which case the word in common would be kind. Get the idea. Oh, yes, thank you, Frank. Ian, what's the common word here?
We had the afternoon of a fawn,
yes,
or phone, and we had cruising down the river.
And
so that on a summer afternoon or
Sunday,
a Sunday afternoon.
So it's
the après-midi.
Afternoon is the key word. Yes, gets you a mark. Dennis, again, one word in common.
Oh, well, it's the Lincolnshire poacher and the sorcerer's apprentice, so the common word is the.
Yes.
There's no sense in making it harder than it is already, I tell you. When we're down to counting the strings on Steve's piano on a musical program, finding the common words, or I don't know.
As Ian said,
I don't know the words of La Apprentice.
As Ian said, when I was born apprentice in
famous
Lincolnshire.
Yeah.
Of course, you know that. One mark. John, here are your 2.
Well, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da is a sonata.
Yes, which one?
Sonata in G.
No,
Spring.
Yes, aha, yes.
Aha.
Spring and the Spring
and,
Sonata.
presumably a spring song by Mendelssohn.
No. Da bum 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 bum. From somebody's finale. That's a difficult job because you got the right answer, but you don't know why. But I must give you it. Spring is the key word. It was from Schumann's Spring Symphony. Bum, 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 bum. Frank, again, the common word.
In the black of night, I gotta go where you are.
Ah.
Chloe!
Yes.
Daphnis and.
Yes, Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe.
And Chloe.
And Chloe the popular song. Yes. Halfway mark, leading by 1 mark at the moment, Denis Norden and Ian Wallace. How about that? Here are some questions to do with musicals and the musical stage. Ian, who spread joy in the life of a male Cinderella?
Mr. Cinders.
Yes, the show.
That was Bobby Howes, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Binny Hay.
Spread joy.
Spread a little happiness.
Yes, right. Sung to him in the show by
Miss Binny Hale.
Binny Hale gets you a mark. Dennis, 246 performances on Broadway would suit me very nicely, but it was the shortest run that Rodgers and Hammerstein ever had. That was with which show, and which novel was it based on? The year was 1955.
Well, I would have said that the shortest running shows in Rodgers and Hammerstein were either Allegro or Me and Juliet, but neither of those were based on novels. They were original. Oh, it's based on a John Steinbeck novel.
Yes, that's right.
And it was called Pipe Dream.
Pipe Dream, and the novel, you know?
I can't remember the name
get
of the
the
novel.
mark. Yes, based on Steinbeck's Sweet Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Rodgers and Hammerstein were the producer's second choice for that show after Frank Lesser. Helen Trouble was in it.
The nice part about Hammerstein was that when South Pacific was running, it was the greatest success that had ever been known on Broadway, because quite apart from the fact it had this fantastic run of over 2,000 performances, you could not get a ticket. And there are all these sort of stories about you have a fellow saying to Hammerstein, I'm going to have 2 tickets for your show on my wedding night. And Hammerstein says, when's your wedding night? He says, whenever I can get 2 tickets for your show. But Hammerstein put a marvellous advertisement in because the praises heaped upon him were from everywhere. And he took a full-page advertisement in Variety in which he listed the shows that had been flops. And these weren't the ones that he'd written with Richard Rodgers, but one he wrote with Jerome Kern, which only went for 5 nights. And he listed 5 of those shows, and he put underneath it, I did it before and I can do it again.
Oh, yes. John, Alan Paton's book, Cry the Beloved Country, became a musical called Lost in the Stars. It was the last Broadway musical for which composer? Silence. Don't know.
Not Cole Porter.
No.
Star,
no. This particular composer was a former student under Engelbert Humperdinck, the composer, I mean, not the singer, and Busoni. He was a pupil of theirs. Any idea, John? No. It was the last Broadway musical Lost in the Stars by Kurt Weill.
Every prospect pleases, and only Kurt.
Weill. Actually, Kurt Weill sent a famous telegram once to Walter Houston, who was under consideration for the show that September Song was in. And he sent a telegram to Walter Houston saying, what is your range? And Houston wired back, I have no range. It turned out to be true, but yet what a marvellous job he made of September Song. Frank, who washed her hair 1,925 times?
Originally, it's South Pacific, of course.
Yes.
The nurse, Nellie, Flatbush, Forbush, from Flatbush.
Yes.
And it was played originally by Mary Martin.
Yes, I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair, yes.
And see him on his way.
Here are some duets. Rather varied in musical style, but duets nonetheless. Ian Wallace, it is Act 2. The scene is Venice. The hero's friend, as she is rather charmingly described, and a courtesan sing together. Ian, I'll wipe that smug smile off your face. The question, what are their names?
I didn't think it was going to be as easy as that. The part that I was smiling at was that I knew it was Tales of Hoffmann.
Yes.
And it was the barcarolle, yes, sung by a courtesan and the hero's friend.
Oh, you knew that, did you?
Well, you told me that.
Yes, I know. Yes. Their names in the opera or the names of the real singers, either would do. You would never guess who the real singers are, I think.
Well, I wasn't sort of listening to it with that amount
you know the characters' names?
Oh, was one of them Giulietta?
Yes, that's 1 mark out of 2, and the other one...
I've forgotten the other.
The other one's a golfer.
Niklaus.
Yes, Niklaus. Niklaus. 1.5 out of 2, why not? The singers Montserrat Caballé and Shirley Verrett there. Because it was a difficult one, so 1.5. Denis Norden, the scene is an American city. 2 young men are feeling groovy.
Slow down, you move too fast. You got to make the morning last. Just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. Feeling groovy.
And off they go down the street. Dennis, what's the name of the street?
Oh, you rotten! That's really rotten. I thought I had that one there because that's Simon and Garfunkel.
Yes, that's right. But do you remember the title of the song? Because that'll give you the name.
I
of the
thought
street.
it was called Feeling Groovy. That's right. That's how I think of it mentally, if I ever do think of it. I can't remember the name.
I can't help you, can I? It's 59th Street Bridge Song. John, time you had an easy one. A soprano and a contralto recorded this together in 1945. Lovely. Who were they, John?
Soprano sounds to be like a marvellous soprano, Margaret Ritchie.
No.
Oh, give him a point. I mean...
No, but you got the lower voice, did you?
No.
The 2? You don't know this record. I thought you'd know the record. It's a very, very famous one indeed. Frank, can you help?
Is it Kathleen Ferrier?
Yes. Kathleen Ferrier was one, and the upper voice. They sang a lot together.
It wasn't you, was it?
No.
I'm compelled to give you 1 mark after 2 and ask the audience. Thank you. Isabel Bailey, it was. Let's also ask the audience who the pianist was. Thank you. Gerald Moore. If it were anybody else, I wouldn't be asking, would I? Except perhaps Ivor Newton. Frank, again, part of a duet. Who are the 2 people concerned?
These silly words like
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yes, well done, you said it.
It couldn't be, could it, something from Mary Poppins?
Yeah, good indeed, yes.
No.
Yes, you're getting better all the time.
In which case, the Julie Andrews.
Thank you.
And the ripe English voice of David Tomlinson.
That's right. 2 marks to your side, and bully for you.
I'm one of the 4 people in the world who haven't seen that film.
5.
6.
Any advance on 6, audience? Here's our closing round for this week, a singing round in which we take Ian last and begin with Dennis. All these songs have something or other to do with giving. Dennis, can you pick this up, please, when I stop?
No. A kind of despair has set in. I think, hum it.
You take the high road,
I'll take the low road, and trouble and strife. Does something and greedy, but yes, indeedy, I'll take the simple. Give me the simple
Yes,
life.
you missed the nicest bit. You take the high road, I'll take the low road, free from all care and strife.
Corn and seedy.
Sounds corny and seedy, but yes, indeedy, give me the simple life.
Yeah.
Well, 1 out of 2, I suppose, for that. Yeah. John, again, the subject is giving. In your case, the gift offered by the Du Barry.
Viertel for 2, es ist mir egal, doch.
Complete with monocle. Yes, why not? I thought you were going to do da-dee-da-da-dee-dee-da-dee-dee, the high notes, but you didn't.
You know why I didn't sing it in English? I mean, I made up the German words, but you know why I didn't sing it in English? Because with Frank next door to you, you can't start singing a song which is, I give my heart just to one man.
2 marks to you, because you got it right. Frank, giving, again.
Give me a shading oak, give me a babbling brook, and yours I'm gonna be. If there's anyone in doubt, and they'd like to try me out, give me the moonlight, give me the girl, and leave the rest to me.
All right, 2 marks for that, I think. Ian, you last. Give me a kiss. In song.
It really is happening this week, isn't it?
Yeah. Give me a little kiss, will you? Huh? What have you got to lose, will you? Huh? Gosh, oh gee, why do you refuse? I can see what you've got to lose, or give me a little squeeze, will you? Huh? Why do you want to make me blue? I wouldn't make a fuss if I was asking for the world, but what's a little kiss between a feller and his girl? Oh, give me a little kiss, will you, huh? And I'll give it right back. I'll give it right back. I'll give it right back to you.
I thought Ian sounded terribly like Frankie Vaughan in places there.
More than Frankie Muir did. Yeah. Oh dear, Ian, how you Ian, how you do lower the tone of the proceedings. I thought you were going to sing "One kiss, one man to save it for." But no. Well, that's all I'm afraid for this edition of My Music. A victory by half a mark for Frank Muir and John Amos. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Frank Muir, Denis Norden, and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the program was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
You've been listening to My Music from the BBC, heard each week at this time. This is the WFMT Fine Arts Network.
The BBC presents My Music. A radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Thank you. Greetings and welcome to another edition of My Music. A colleague of mine once distinguished himself by saying that the chairs are all occupied by the usual faces. And the usual faces in our case belong respectively to Ian Wallace and Denis Norden, competing in musical knowledge against John Amis and Frank Muir. All the pieces of music in this opening round have something to do with arrivals or entrances. Ian Wallace, whose entrance does this herald? Ian.
The Queen of Sheba.
That's right.
Presumably at the double.
That's right. Her arrival, yes. From, for your second mark.
From?
From elsewhere, I suppose.
From
as Frank says,
from off stage.
Frank says from Sheba.
From Sheba. Well,
the music from
immigration.
Or from transit.
Well, the music's by Handel.
Yes, from an oratorio of his by the name of.
Oh. No, that's not the name.
Who was a close friend, as the newspapers say, of the Queen of Sheba. The audience is telling you in very loud voices, actually.
John Amis is doing the most wonderful mime of cutting off a baby's head, which would indicate Herod.
King Herod, it would, wouldn't it? It should actually have been Solomon.
No fool, my John.
I thought he'd scored an own goal there for a moment.
Just a hazy recollection of the scriptures, I think you could say. Well, you got the title and you got Handel, so why not? 2 bucks, fair enough. Denis, the arrival of spring, in your case, whose music and whose lyrics?
It's a beehive of budding son and daughter life. Every family has plans in view. Even down in the brook, the underwater life is forever blowing bubbles too.
Every male little mallard honks a heart-rending ballad from the stream where he sloshes in his web-foot galoshes.
Wonderful next line. He gurgles brimmingly, will get along swimmingly. It's spring, spring, spring.
Spring. Yes. Comes from 7 Brides for 7 Brothers.
Yes.
Which the words, wonderful words, is your friend.
Yes, I'm happy
Steve,
to say.
Johnny Mercer.
The greatest of all lyric writers, I think. Yeah.
And he wrote 2 musicals with this bloke, Little Abner, and whose name was Jean de Paul.
That's right. Jean de Paul wrote the music. That's your 2 marks. John Amis, another arrival. Whose arrival where?
It's the 3:30 to Valhalla, meeting a cow on the line.
Yes. Who was entering?
The entry of the gods.
Yes, into Valhalla from the finale of Das Rheingold. For your second mark, John, why are the Rhine maidens fed up about it?
Do you want it in Freudian terms?
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
In German.
Oh, no, not in German, in Freudian. No, just a...
Miss Rheingold of 1893.
Synopsis-wise would do. Something to do with their treasure.
They're trying to give it away. least Wotan is giving it away.
Well, yes.
She didn't notice.
Yes,
I think I can give it...
He's paying, is it Northolt and Fafnolt? No, what are they called? Something like that. He's paying them, covering one of the goddesses with gold, and they can have all the gold they can take away, which the Rhine maidens think that they should really be guarding down in the Rhine.
Well, yes, that'll do nicely. The crisp answer I have here, the Rhine maidens are fed up about the entrance of the gods into Valhalla because their treasure was stolen in order to pay for the gods' beautiful home.
Well, you say it much better than I do.
Well, thank you, but I have all the reference books at my fingertips, you see. Yes, fair enough. You have 2 marks. Entrances again, Frank Muir. Whose entry? And I also want, please, the composer's name.
Entry of almost everybody. Circus clowns, ladies on horseback. Cyril Fletcher.
Yes, entrance of Cyril Fletcher, his signature tune for a start.
Yes, it's ended high. It's Enter the Gladiators.
Yes.
By Fuchik.
Yes, Julius Fuchik. I never thought you'd know that.
Well, I didn't, actually. There's a fairy whisper wafted from my port side.
He was Fuchik, 1872 to 1916. Yes, 2 marks to Frank. Some miscellaneous musical questions now. Ian, what did Dragonetti, Bottesini and Kusevitsky have in common?
Oh.
It's a prompt from Denis, that's surprising.
I didn't hear it, unfortunately.
I said they're all difficult to spell.
They're all difficult to say, too, actually. Dragonetti, Bottesini and Kusevitsky.
Kusevitsky was is a Russian conductor.
No, but before that was. Yes.
Let's by a process of elimination, the other 2 are not Russian. They sound like Italian.
Yes,
to
that's
me.
right. I think the one you're likely to know, apart from Kusevitsky, which you don't know, is Dragonetti. If you've heard that word at all, you'll have heard it in this connection, I think.
It was a television series.
Yes, I was thinking he must have composed bum, ba-bum, bum.
Only the names are changed to protect the innocent. Yes, I know. I think it could be said that you don't know.
Oh, well, it could, but...
Yes, it could. I think it has been.
Now, just a minute now. You said before that. In other words, what he did before he was a conductor.
That's right.
Well, he must have gone to some college of music somewhere and studied a musical instrument.
Ah, it's what he carried up the steps, that's the point.
The conductor. Klinger.
But he kept a satchel with his music out.
I refuse to go on any longer with this. They were all virtuoso double bass players. The 3 best-known double bass players in the world, I should think.
What about Slam Stewart?
Well, they didn't have the benefit of his advice, actually. Dragonetti gave his name to a method of bowing double bass. Anyway, no marks. Denis, on a very different musical level, how far is it from Shelley's to Ronnie's? Slam Stewart could tell you.
Oh, it's in that era. Is Ronnie Scott's?
Yes.
Well, Ronnie Scott has a club in Soho,
that's right.
Which is known as Ronnie's. Yes. The only Shelley, is Shelley Mann, who used to be the drummer with Stan Kenton and Woody Herman. And I worked with an American writer who used to spend all his time, apparently, at this... I don't know what the name of it is, but he had a club which had rather an exotic name, I can't remember, which would have been in Los Angeles.
That's right, so...
So it's however far it is from Los Angeles to Soho, but it's complicated because of the one-way system they've got now.
when you get to Soho, you've got to find Frith Street, which is even harder. That's right.
And it's getting to the airport that takes the time.
Yes. So, well,
that's about, I would say, about 6,000 miles.
Yeah, 5,500 miles, something like that, as the crow flies. Between Shelley Mann's club, Shelley's Manhole, it was called, rather cleverly, in Los Angeles, and Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London. News to me, by the way, that Shelley Mann ever worked with Woody Herman, but you could be right. Kenton was the great band he was with. John Amos, what specifically did Domenico Alberti, 1710 to 1740, do that benefited Haydn, Mozart and Beethoven, among others? Alberti.
Well, he is connected, like Kusevitsky and the other two blokes, with the bass.
Yes.
But the kind of bass that you play with the left hand on the piano.
Yes, or on a celeste, as I will now do. Yes, he devised really the sort of that sort of bass, and it's usually known as the Alberti bass, even in something like a Beethoven sonata. Yes, Mark, to you. Frank, where does the expression come from, pièce de sauvetage?
Comes from France.
Well,
I
can't deny that. Yes, I can't deny that. Yes.
Sauvetage is salvage, isn't it?
Yes, in a way.
Pièce de sauvetage. It's a fallen woman who's been redeemed. A pièce de...
You're on the right track. I can't say you actually got a mark here.
It's not the French name for... I sing the very low notes. It's a one day he gets them. Yours very sincerely. Flotsam and jetsam.
Pièce de sauvetage.
Pièce de sauvetage, flotsam and jetsam.
Oh, I see. Worth a mark while I tell you what it really means, all right?
Yeah.
I think, yes. When I asked where does the expression pièce de sauvetage come from, it comes from the opera world in Rossini's day, meaning operas that include last-minute rescues, literally rescue pieces. And a good example would be, of course, Fidelio, where somebody is, in fact, rescued more or less at the last moment. Interesting, I thought.
Semi.
Not so interesting. I was about to say not so interesting as your answer, but I didn't expect it to be. Our contestants are provided with pens and paper, but most of the time they only use them for doodling. In Denis's case, I noticed magnificent black baroque, highly revealing doodles, which I hope to publish in a book one day. For the next round, though, pen and paper is needed, because you have to write down the 6 tunes in your particular piano medley, which I'm about to play. The first medley is for Ian and Denis, 6 tunes as usual, and 3 marks available. You're writing assiduously, or doodling. Who's got the first one, Ian, Denis?
It's a lovely day tomorrow.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah.
Then
the next bit, there was a bit of that Charlie Chaplin tune, Smile, then your heart is...
No, it wasn't.
Was it? Oh.
No, it wasn't. It was... may have been in somebody's mind when he wrote it. Did you recognise it, Ian? It's your field, rather. Qatari. Calling to me, Qatari. Then came, Ian?
Getting Sentimental Over You.
But before that was something you both missed, I think.
Yes.
Slavonic Dance No. 8 in G minor by Dvorak, Opus 46. And then came Denis.
Getting Sentimental Over You.
And the last one...
If I Had a Talking Picture
of You. 4 out of 6, 3 marks. Well done. 2 marks. Yeah. Two marks. Sorry,
I don't wish to be pedantic, but I heard a chap with an educated voice saying that it's not opus, it's opus.
Opus.
Because opus is un-Latin and un-English and un-everything else.
Thank you very much. No. Opus 46, then.
No. Opus. The BBC, the brand of Latin that the BBC...
He had a very, very educated voice, this chap.
I know, but you know what they're like. You know.
Well, I'll tell you, I went to school and learnt Latin just as they were changing from the old style to... No, from the new style back to the old. And I'm like the teacher in Goodbye, Mr. Chips, who likes to call it By chase him and not we kiss him, if you remember.
Yeah. Did you say Caesar for Caesar?
Yes, Julius
right.
Caesar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's have some more extracts from Oprah.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yes. This is for John and Frank, your medley. Short and sweet.
3, I've got.
Well, I hope it's the other 3.
Yes, that's right. Who's got that? You've both got the first one.
Maybe I'm called summer
Maybe it's because I'm a Londoner, yes. Then came Frank.
We didn't have a number 2.
No. All right. Number 2 was If I Had You. Da, 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 dum.
Oh, nonsense.
Then, John.
Meistersinger Overture,
yes.
Wagner.
Or Prelude, yes. Then came...
Then came that lovely melody that one knows so well,
but can't put a name to.
It was Hooper's number. No, what is it?
It was Roses of Picardy. Roses are blooming in Picardy. Then came 2 more. You are my heart still right, yes. And finally, I don't think you got it, John, did you?
Finally, there was a bit of Les Sylphides.
Oh,
Chopin.
yes, that would do. Or the E-flat Waltz, Opus 18, Grand Waltz, Struyante, yes. You too get 4 out of 6, so it's 2 marks to you, and that's the halfway mark. Let's have a look at the score. Leading by 1 mark at the moment, John Amis and Frank Muir. I'm going to mention now a few of yesterday's instrumentalists. The question is, what did they play? Ian Wallace, which instrument in particular did Eric Coates play?
The viola.
Yes. Or Frank would perhaps prefer you to say the viola, would he? After the trouble we had with opus and opus? Yes, the viola.
I have an open mind on the subject, or an open mind.
I think he played the viola while wearing a viola in his buttonhole, probably. Anyway, whatever it was, he played it in Sir Henry Wood's Queen's Hall Orchestra before he became, of course, a famous...
musicians call them Bratscher scratchers. Bratscher being the German for viola. Sorry, erudite. Shut up.
Ian, 1 mark to you. Dennis, Tricky Sam.
Tricky Sam?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be Samuel Pepys, who I learnt on this programme, I think, played either flute or recorder, I've forgotten now.
The flageolet.
The flageolet, that's it, yes. Very nice they are.
No, not Tricky Sam Pepys.
Bishop wasn't the one who played the musket.
No. I don't know Tricky Sam. It sounds like a character out of Little Abner or something. But
no, well, in fact, musically speaking, a character out of Duke Ellington's orchestra, a trombonist named Tricky Sam Nanton. A man of greatest eminence in the Ellington world earlier.
I beg his pardon.
No marks there. John Amis, Joseph Daniels.
Joseph who?
Joseph Daniels.
How to spell it?
Frank is helping you, yes.
Joe Daniels.
Oh, and his hot shots.
Yes, all right then. Joe Daniels. I was having you on slightly. Yes, played the
percussion.
Yes, drums with Harry Roy's band and with his own hot shots during the Second World War years. Joe Daniels. Frank Muir, Ish Kabibble.
He was one of those chaps who, while the orchestra vamped, unhooked his saxophone or stepped aside from his drums and wove his way in between the music stands and did something semi-comical in front of the band.
That's right, except that whenever he was doing that, they were one short in the trumpet department.
Ah, yes. Actually. Well, they probably would be, because he played the trumpet.
No, the trumpet player hadn't turned up. So. Yes, he played the trumpet. Can you give me the name of the band? Whose band was it? No?
It's an American band.
Yes, American band. The vocals, comedy routines with Dennis. You know, don't you?
Kay Kaiser.
Kay Kaiser's band, yeah. Since the question was what instrument, Frank, I think all I can do is half a mark there, out of 1. The last round, the singing one, seems to have something this week to do with flowers and fruit. not to say veggies in a couple of cases. Beginning with Denis, we've got part of a record, and then 2 marks, Denis, if you can carry on with the song.
Whoa, Liza, see the Costa bearers, vegetable manners, and the fruit pile high. Whoa, Liza, little London sparrows, Covent Garden Market, where the Costas cry.
Early rain with the pavements glistening, All Park Lane wears a shimmering gown. Nothing can ever break or harm the charm of London town.
Very nice.
Well, I didn't know about that song till it never occurred to me. It's the same tune as Deutschland, Deutschland über alles, which, considering the time it was written, is rather nice.
Well, I won't comment on that. Nice idiosyncratic performance from you.
Why won't you comment on it, Steve? You generally comment when I'll try to...
Because I'm not sure if it's true or not.
Well, it's the same tune as Won't You Buy My Sweet Scented Lavender.
All my life I've been hearing people say that A is the same tune as B, and it seldom is.
Yeah,
in my experience, hardly ever. Sometimes the rhythms are the same, but not the notes.
I see.
And when the rhythms and the notes are, the chords aren't the same.
I'll tell you two they're the same. The Yankee Doodle went to town, and Kitty Fisher's lost her locket.
Yes.
Kitty Fisher's lost her locket was a filthy 18th century song, which then went across to America and became Yankee Doodle.
And the chords remain the same as well, don't they?
Mind you, it's the same. Yeah. It's the same tune. It's not a similar tune, which is a rather different thing.
Right. This is what we call a chat show, folks.
Yeah. I hope, as I'm right.
Yes. Denis has 2 marks for that idiosyncratic performance of London Pride. John, your turn. Again, the subject is flora, flowers. A rather sober introduction, and then in you come, please.
Tu m'avais jeté dans ma prison, m'était resté flétrie et sèche cette fleur, gardait toujours sa douce odeur.
You stuck at it. You could have been another Lulu.
I think listeners should know that John is actually a very large, well-built man, and it's always a thrill to hear that small, exquisite voice issuing, I think, from somebody who keeps inside there is a spare.
Certainly gets him 2 marks, anyway. Frank, The Mikado, Act 2, and a song in praise of spring flowers, if you'll kindly oblige. I will oblige first with an introduction to set you off in the right key. Ready? Here goes. Why don't you start?
Or the flowers that bloom in the spring, tra-la, bring promise of merry sunshine. As we merrily dance and we sing, tra-la. We welcome the hope of a spring, tra-la. A summer of roses and wine. A summer of roses and wine. And that's what we mean when we say of a thing. Oh, welcome as the flowers that bloom in the spring. Tra-la-la-la-la. La-la-la-la. Ooh. Tiddly-bum-ty-bum.
Yes. From the Mikado, or the town of Tiddly-Pom-Ti-Pom, 2 marks to Frank. Ian, I thought you might favour us with a song about the agricultural treatment of a globular-rooted biennial used in feeding cattle, of which the top is employed as a vegetable, and the method of encouraging its growth, the skilled use of the hoe, which I think is the clue to what I have in mind, the hoe.
'Twas on a jolly summer's morn, the 21st of May, Giles Scroggins took his term at O, and with it trudged away. And some delights in hay-making, and some as fancies mowing, but the best of trades, as I likes best, give me the term at Owen, for the fly is on the termit. And it's all my eye for we to try to keep fly off the termit.
Thank you. And so we homeward plod our weary way at the end of this edition of My Music. A victory by 1.5 marks for Giles Scroggins, John Amos and Frank Muir.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Frank Muir, Denis Norden and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the programme was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
You've been listening to My Music from the BBC, heard each week at this time. This is the WFMT Fine Arts Network.
The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Thank you very much. And once again, hello. Coming your way, yet again, My Music, with our usual 4 contestants, Ian Wallace and his partner, Denis Norden, competing against John Amos and his partner, Frank Muir. It's familiar, but I can't put a name to it. We all say that from time to time, especially in this opening round of My Music. Ian Wallace, what show does this come from, and who composed it? Recognise it?
I recognise it, but it's exactly what you said, Steve. It's familiar.
Yes.
Can I put a name to it? It's American.
Yes.
And it's
Athletic.
Oh, yes. It's launched on 10th Avenue.
Yeah, that's right. That's your partner, Denis, who got it.
Bit, yeah.
Yeah. So the question
Richard Rogers.
Yes, Richard Rogers, 1 mark. Which show did it come from?
On your toes.
Yes.
On Your Toes.
Says Ian.
Fortunately, my partner is on his.
Yes, 1936 show. Incidentally, in the first London production at the Palace Theatre, one of the stars was Eddie Poehler. Do you remember him?
Tune detective.
Yes, roughly once every month, some listener writes to me and says, "Why don't I revive Eddie Poehler's old radio series about twisted tunes?"
Because you don't believe that one tune resembles
No,
another.
I don't. Not as often as people claim, anyway. No. How true. Yes.
I think Vera Zorina was in there.
Zorina,
Yes.
Jack Whiting and Leslie Henson.
I saw it.
Did you? Anyway, 2 marks to Ian to get us started. Denis, whose band made this famous, and what's the title of the tune?
Southern area champions in the Latin division wearing 24 yards of tall. Why did ballroom dancers always have such ugly names? Nobody's ever worked that out. It was called Scroggs. And that's Joe Loss's band.
Yes, Dancing Time for Dancers, yes.
And it's the Wheels Cha-Cha.
Yes, that's right. 2 marks to you. John Amos, different kind of music. Whose homage to whom?
English folk song, Oliver Cromwell, which ends up, if you want any more, you can sing it yourself. And it's practically that. If you want any more, see good, yourself are.
Oh, Grieg's secure way of answering.
Incidental music, Sigurd, yourself are.
Yes, well, a homage march. Yes. Sigurd, yourself are, I've been told to pronounce it, with the stress on the first syllable.
I'm very sorry.
Well, not at
I've
all.
been away so long.
Sigurd, yourself are, get you 2 marks. A tune that, incidentally, was very important, I believe, to listeners to Free Norway radio during World War II. Frank, whose satire on whom?
It's artistry in rodents.
Yes, actually.
It's Three Blind Mice in the style of Stan Kenton.
That's right. Whose satire, do you know? Whose orchestra? For your 2nd mark.
I can't help you there offhand, Steve.
No?
No.
Well, the band leader had a hit record with this. He compared the whole proceedings, various versions like Glenn Miller and so on. This Kenton one he called Theme for a Trio of Sightless Rodents. So you and he had the same idea. It was John Dankworth's Experiments with Mice.
Ah, he was Johnny then.
He was Johnny Dankworth then, yes. One of his 2 great record hits of that period. 1 out of 2. And we move on to the next round, which concerns composers and their works. Ian, this is from a newspaper review of an opera performance at Covent Garden. Just what kind of a wife do you have to be to secure the release of your political prisoner husband? A hard women's lib battler or a resolute woman who uses no more than guile and courage? It's what you might call a grabber, that review, isn't it? What was the critic discussing in an oblique kind of way?
A resolute woman who has
political prisoner husband.
Fidelio.
Yes, Fidelio. And I don't know what he thought he was up to, but that's what the critic wrote in the Evening News.
Well, you've got to find something new to say, haven't you?
Yes, haven't you? Yes. And he did, and you get a mark. Dennis, which composer, and under what circumstances, wrote to another composer, "Great Chief, receive my tomahawk"?
My mind is racing through the many Red Indian composers. Songs like Sweet Sue. Tie another ribbon round the old teepee. And whoever he was, his name escapes me. He said what? What did he say?
Great Chief, receive my tomahawk. I must give you a mark for ingenuity, and because you couldn't have done it anyway, I guess the most endearing remark. It was what Berlioz said when exchanging conductor's batons with Mendelssohn. Great Chief, receive my tomahawk. He was writing, he enclosed it with a note that said that. And incidentally, the Paris Conservatoire has that baton still, the one that he sent.
Well, it just shows how wrong one. I was just going to suggest to you it might have been something to do with higher water.
That's what I was doing. I was going on to one of those literary competitions that certain papers have, and they suggested new second lines to great, well-known poems and things. And what they did for Hiawatha, Somebody had written, on the shores of Gitchagumi, Hiawatha socked it to me.
John Amos, here again is a critic's description of an opera. Frederick Sharp plays a bemused and helpless, impoverished aristocrat, Alexander Young an impossibly debonair Ruritanian prince, and there is a final ensemble that holds its own against what was surely its model, the quintet in L'Heure Espagnole. Which opera was the subject of that review?
Alexander Young as a Ruritanian prince.
Frederick Sharp, an aristocrat.
Is that a contemporary number?
Is that
Yes.
F sharp major or F sharp minor?
Major.
Major.
Well, makes a difference.
Contemporary opera, did you say?
Yes, 1954, first performed at Aldborough. Didn't last long, only one act, only one course. One act, I'm sorry.
Could it be Punch and Judy?
No. I made a mistake and said only one course when I should have said only one act. Can't help any more, I think. Now, it was Lennox Berkeley's comic opera, A Dinner Engagement, which contained those characters. Frank, Sir Arthur Bliss calls one of his compositions a rout, but it's not aggressive or warlike in style. What, in the sense he means, was a rout?
It's not a significant cough, that. It's just I've got a cold coming on. A rout was, it'd be more musical to call it a drum, which in fact is exactly the same thing. Or ridotto. Although all three were the same things. All three are 18th century, or started out to be 18th century words for a party. But they split slightly with usage. And a drum became a sort of ladies' party, usually with cards. And a ridotto became a huge sort of public affair. And a rout was a sort of gentleman's ball. You know, it's a family, large family.
Yes. It took on, I gather, from my books, a rather special significance. I think it's rather nice. A public dance or masquerade for middle-class enjoyment of upper-class pleasures. Is the way it was put in one reference. As in Ranelagh or at Vauxhall. Here it's just a moment or two from Arthur Bliss's rout, just to hear it. Rout in the sense of revelry, perhaps.
I think Sir Arthur Bliss would say that's really a very good explanation of my piece from Frank Muir, and I'm most grateful to have it.
How do you do it, John?
It's absolute bliss, you know, my dear fellow, absolute bliss.
Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, yeah. Some questions about the lower end of music now. Ian Wallace, are you a basso ostinato, and if not, why not?
Only about money.
Yes, ostinato.
Because ostinato it means, in fact, obstinate. But it's I'm a basso comico, if anything, or a basso buffo. No, this is a form of, I suppose you would call it persistent bass.
Yes.
A figure that is repeated in the bass.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes throughout a whole piece of music. It's a device that Purcell was very fond of. Dennis, this is from the lighter side of music, but the basso ostinato nonetheless. Can you give me the title and the composer who's also playing it here?
I'm not actually very strong on this, but I think we had that. Would this be a 12-inch record? Is it actually a very long song?
No, not 12-inch, no.
It was on a Blue Note label.
What have you got in mind?
I've got in mind Honky Tonk Train Blue.
Yes, I didn't think it was 12-inch.
That was on a 12-inch label. Because it takes forever. And now, wait a minute. That was Albert Ammons was the other one. That's Mead Lux Lewis.
Yes, Mead Lux Lewis. That's right. You've got it. And
I really don't know very much about that type of music, but I'm told that's a classic of
yes,
its kind.
Very much so. Medleys Lewis, American Negro boogie-woogie pianist, made a record in 1922 of that and then completely vanished from everybody's ken. And a jazz impresario rediscovered him after a rather dramatic, chase, as it were, in 1936, found him washing cars in a Chicago garage and got him to re-record it, and that was the 1936 record we heard just then. Medleys Lewis, Honky Tonk Train Blues.
I wonder if I imagined that it was a 12, but I'm sure it was a larger record than most, the equivalent of what you said.
John, we're still concerned very much with the bass end of music, and this is a bass singer, one whom I've honestly never appreciated, perhaps because I never saw him in person and came under his spell. Frank, I imagine, might call him Charlie Hairpin. What is he singing here, and who composed it?
I don't know the piece at all.
Do you know the composer? Have the stylistic tone of the composer?
Oh, I should say sort of somewhere between Glinka and Dagomishki.
No, I can't go any further, can I? It's the Tripak from Songs and Dances of Death by, one more guess. Mussorgsky, all right, yes. Recorded in 1929 by Shelyapin, half a mark, I think, after that. Frank, what exactly is the function of a bass bar?
Oh, it's where the heavy fellows meet, round the back of the hall at Glyndebourne. It's
John's writing for you.
With a thing like a violin, the bridge takes the strain of the strings, not on the belly or the table of the violin, because that is supported. In fact, the two legs of the bridge are supported beneath. And one support is a peg, which either keeps the belly and the back together or keeps them apart, according to which way you think of these things. And the other one is a kind of long strake. So one leg of the bridge, as it were, is transmitting the vibrations to the back of the violin, and the other leg is transmitting it to the table, and that's called the bass bar.
Well, actually, you're right the first time. It's a place where the big fellas drink. Yes, you described it perfectly. It supports the belly of a violin or other string instrument, runs lengthwise along the grain of the wood at 90 degrees, in other words, to the sound. Boost. 2 marks to you. But, I notice, leading at the moment by 3.5 marks, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden. We're going to hear now some performances, some slightly blemished performances, truth to tell. Ian, this is a chamber orchestra getting a little confused between two pieces. Which two pieces? Any ideas?
Well, one of them is undoubtedly, oh, Jemima, look at your Uncle Jim.
Yes. Otherwise known.
He's underwater, learning how to swim. First he does the breaststroke, then he does the side, and now he's underwater, swimming against the tide. Which I think was written by Gounod.
Yes. Only he called it...
He called it the Soldier's Chorus from Faust for some reason.
Did you recognise the other piece?
Well, I would have been prepared to put a modest 10p on Mozart.
Yes.
But which no, I wouldn't like to...
Well, 1.5 out of 2. It was the Hafner Symphony, number 35 in D, K385. Denis, I never tire of listening to that great stylist of the pianoforte, Jonathan Edwards. As you know, he's Paul Weston having a bit of fun. While you're trying to recall for 2 marks who wrote April in Paris... It says here on my card. Jonathan Edward plays it with a special introduction to set the scene. Listen. What I like about him is the eternal optimist. He starts every run with the best of intentions, doesn't he? And then comes a terrible cropper. Well, who wrote April in Paris? Words and music.
We're on familiar ground, aren't we? It was written by Vernon Duke. Yeah.
And the lyrics?
And the lyrics were by E.Y. Harburg.
Yes. Yep.
The title was suggested by Dorothy Parker.
Was it?
Actually, yeah. Oh. Yeah. It really was one of those, hey, that'd make a great song things. She used a phrase about, it's just, you know, I feel like April, I feel so good, I feel like April in Paris. And he picked it up from her.
How marvellous. 2 marks to you. John Amos, even the greatest performers can hit an off day. I was at a concert not terribly long ago when a highly respected pianist played the Grieg piano concerto but had a bit of bad luck with the very first bars. If I can give you an impression of it myself, it was something like this. What had happened was that his hands had somehow lost the exact span of an octave, and when that happens you are doomed. John, what in inches is the span of an octave? You've seen enough piano keyboards in your time. Have a guess. The span of an octave. They all measure exactly the same, all octaves.
I think about 5.5 to 6 inches.
Near enough, I think. It's 6.5 inches. I think it's near enough for 2 marks. Frank, I don't think we've ever heard this lady in My Music, though goodness knows she's familiar elsewhere, and we've mentioned her. She is Florence Foster Jenkins, the lady who used to hire Carnegie Hall for her recitals, and they were always a sellout once word had got around. Here she is. Frank, what was she singing, and what was the name of her faithful accompanist?
Steve Race.
I would have been honoured, actually.
She was singing Queen of the Night on a magic flute.
Yes, thank you.
It's all here, isn't it?
Dare it, say it.
Roll credits. Cosmo Mush.
Moon. John's written it, no. Cosme, actually, not Cosmo. Cosme McMoon.
Oh.
I think she was one of the great humorists, actually.
You know, once upon a time she had a car accident, and it clearly wasn't her fault. And the man who'd run into her was terrified she was going to sue him for a lot of money, but she wrote and sent him a letter saying, "Thank you very much. After the accident, I can get a higher E flat in alt than ever before."
Yes. So to the last round, and the singing from us, beginning with Dennis. Dennis, Tony Bennett sings 2 words. I'd like the next 13 words from you for 2 marks. Here goes.
San Francisco.
I left my heart.
Move over, Florence Foster. You really want that? In San Francisco. Oh. Yeah. Fran Francisco, it always sounds like when he's high on a hill, it calls to me.
Gets you 2 marks, yes.
Good.
To be where little cable cars climb halfway to the stars. John, you too will hear an introduction, this one by a full brass section plus some strings. Then please, your entry.
Celestiaina, forma divina, mystico serto, di luce fior.
I noticed while you were singing, each line, just as you came to the high note, you brought your arm forward and placed the forefinger between your eyes above the nose. What was that for?
Well, I remember when I was trying to learn to sing that, my professor said, "You've got to think that high note, which goes nastily across the break, of the normal voice. And you've got to go across that break. So you've got to think it into the forehead.
It's a think piece.
Do you ever hear Peter Ustinov's marvellous thing about when he was given 3 singing lessons in Rome?
He said, you got to think of either the stomach, you got to breathe of either the forehead.
I forget where the other one was, but it's probably just as well.
Frank, there's one particular part of the Barber of Seville that every singer does slightly differently. We'd like to hear your version. A few bars of Robert Merrill to lead you in. So first we hear Mr. Merrill, and then we hear Mr. Muir.
Figaro, 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 Figaro.
I think an eighth of a mark each. I think.
Figaro.
Get you 2 marks. Figaro. Right. Ian, your turn. A song, please, about a public servant of a kind. Armorially speaking, his banner on a crimson ground, that's the clue, carries a somewhat mercenary message. And you should know it if no one does.
Yes. My ancestors, as I've been told, were highwaymen and pirates bold, outlaws, rustlers down the years, smugglers, cutthroats, buccaneers and rogues of like condition. For though a rollicking rover's life is not allowed me by my wife, it's my belief that a robber chief would envy my profession. You ask what it may be, sir, then hearken here to me, sir. Some talk of Alexander bold, of Ajax and of Hector, but I'm the one from whom they run in search of a protector. Policeman, soldier, humble clerk, or company director, all quake with fear when I appear. The income tax collector, the income tax collector.
Well, I'm afraid we have to close the books at this point and report a victory by 3 marks for Ian Wallace and Denis Norden.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Frank Muir, Denis Norden and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the programme was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
You've been listening to My Music from the BBC, heard each week at this time. This is the WFMT Fine Arts Network.
The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
My Music reporting for duty once more. Ian Wallace is partnered by Denis Norden, while on the other side, Frank Muir having a touch of the flu, we have John Amos assisting and assisted by a welcome guest, Alfred Marks. So it's Wallace and Norden versus Amos and Marks. During music lessons at school, gentlemen, such as they were, the teacher was forever making us clap rhythms or tap them out on our desks. Oddly enough, I don't think we've ever done that in the long and undignified history of My Music. So now is the time to start. I'll give you a clue as to the type of music and then tap out a rhythm. Ian Wallace, you first. See if you can identify this. It's from an overture written 150 years ago. etc.
Yes, I think I recognise this. This is Rossini, isn't it?
Yes, and it's... What's the title of it?
Semiramide.
Yes, that'll do nicely. Gets you a mark. Very good. And here's how the music sounds. And so on. Dennis, yours is the only tune I know that has been recorded by the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra and by Borominovich and his Harmonica Rascals. Listen.
Would I know this if I heard the actual tune?
Yes. Yes, especially if sung by the Andrews sisters.
We have a very good relationship because Steve knows everything I know, so it's like those husband and wives where the husband says to the wife, "Do I like broccoli?" It's something very fast.
Yes, that's right. I had a bit of wrist trouble doing the taps, actually.
Do you know, Ian?
There's a diddle-um-dum-dum, diddle-um-bum-bum in it.
Diddle-um-bum-bum. Run through all the tunes you know with diddle-um-bum-bum.
Well, they've all got diddle-um-bum, the ones that I know.
I don't think I know, actually.
No, I'm going to have to give you 0 marks and play you this.
Oh.
There you are, diddle-um-bum-bum, diddle-um-bum-bum. John Amos, first heard 400 years ago, this is better known in its 1921 suit of clothes. Any ideas?
Well, it might be Vaughan Williams, Thomas Tallis.
You got it! Oh, crikey, yes. The correct title, please, Vaughan Williams.
Fantasy on a Theme by Thomas
Tallis, yes. And
very difficult to recognise these, aren't they? I wonder if the audience, did anybody in the audience recognise that?
I thought they would think it was da-da-da-dum,
yeah.
But it was in fact this. So on. Lovely music. Alfred Marks.
Not
welcome.
too hard, please. I'm the new boy, remember?
Well, I know. Alfred, in all the years I was musical director for your television series, I don't think my orchestra ever played this, but I'm sure you'll know it. A touch of Baroque. In fact, it's a touch piece. Any luck?
Yes, strange enough.
Good.
My word, that's an easy one. It's the Rhapsody for Ball, Point, Pen and BBC Table. As I'm a new boy, I'm getting slight help from John Amos, who's the master of them all. I goggle with admiration. He says it's toccata. And I think it might be Bach toccata.
Might well be.
Yes. Would be.
Would you like care to essay a key?
D.
Yes.
Before you wrote it, I said that.
And would you like major or minor?
Minor.
Yes. Thumbs down was that, John? You gave him.
Pointed down into the ground, so I knew it was a minor.
Yes. J.S. Bach toccata from the Toccata and Fugue in D minor. Here's the tune. And when I said a touch of Baroque, a touch piece, of course, toccata means a touch.
That's really gave us the clue.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I'll try that again. The next round, which you might sum up as who said or who played. Ian, who said of whose work, he was a beautiful sunset that was mistaken for a dawn?
I should think it was a rather short-sighted astronaut in orbit going round. Or perhaps a shepherd who got mixed up with his warning and his delight.
Red skies, yes. I don't think I can help
No,
you, can I?
I am now at the end of my resources on that one.
Well, the man who said he was a beautiful sunset was referring to Wagner. It was mistaken for a dawn. He was quite wrong, of course. But the man who said it was Debussy. So it was Debussy speaking of Wagner. Dennis, who had strict instructions never to play... You're beaming like a Cheshire cat.
Yeah, well, I was up there in those Wagnerian heights. Trepidation, and suddenly, welcomingly, you must remember that. Yes, Sam had strict instructions from Rick.
Yes.
Never to play this. And in fact, he...
I don't know if you saw that was a cat that just walked on the stage. Extraordinary thing.
Alfred.
It's not yours, Alfred.
It must be Alfred's.
Yes,
I'm
afraid so, yes.
Back
Back to serious matters, Dennis, yes. You said Sam had instructions not
Instructions from Rick
yes.
not to play this in a film called Casablanca.
Yes. Who were the players?
Well, it was Dooley Wilson played Sam and Humphrey Bogart played Rick. And Casablanca was the most romantic film ever to be written by two people called Epstein. It was. The writers were Julius and Philip Epstein.
Were they really? Yes. Well, I didn't know that, but you get a mark. John, who was the first person to play this trumpet part?
Hans Richter.
Yes. And the circumstances, please?
Wagner wrote the Siegfried Idyll when his son was born, and it was a present for his wife Cosima, and they played it under her window.
Well, no, on the stairs outside her bedroom.
On the stairs. And the extraordinary thing is that Richter, who was really a horn player, started off as a horn player, was practicing the trumpet part. He's only got about 12 or 16 bars to play, but it must have been quite a noise, and the fact that he was able to do this in the house and Cosima still didn't twig that something was up, I think is rather remarkable. Perhaps he had a mute.
Well, yes, but women being what they are, I've always felt that Cosima Wagner knew perfectly well what was going on, because for weeks before she'd heard Richter in various parts of the house going, da, 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 da. I think she knew. But it's nice that she pretended not to and was overwhelmed with joy as she heard this new music. Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, wasn't
That's
it?
right.
First performed. Yes, a mark to you. Alfred, this is a quotation. I shall never forget his little animated countenance, lit up with the glowing rays of genius. It is as impossible to describe as it would be to paint sunbeams. Question, who was that? Speaking of whom? His little animated countenance.
I don't know, but John thinks it's Mozart. Laughing. Mozart, ridiculous.
And do you agree with him?
Of course. Pardon?
You agree with him and you've got a mark.
Yeah, of course I agree
yes,
with him.
That's right. It was somebody speaking about Mozart.
Yes, it was somebody speaking about Mozart. I'll now have to tread water while he writes the other part down.
If he writes two names, we're probably right.
No.
I have to tell you, it was Michael Kelly, the original Don Basilio in Figaro, writing in his memoirs about working with Mozart. But Alfred, being our guest, we give him a mark because he got Mozart.
Yes.
Yes. Time for my piano medleys. 6 tunes, 6 titles, 3 marks available if you can supply the titles. For this, Alfred, you'll need that pencil and paper in front of you. But the first medley is for Ian and Denis, working together as a team. My guess is that Ian will get numbers 1, 3, 5 and 6, and that Denis will know tunes 2, 4, 5 and 6. I think, by the way, this is the crispest medley I've managed to put together yet, so let's see how you get on. Malay. Right, that's the end of that. Let's see how... Ian, did you get the first one?
No.
You're still writing.
Well, they came so quickly.
Well, Ian insists on putting his name, Ian Wallace, form. He puts Ian Wallace, my music, and then he puts the date. So he always misses the first one.
London, the world, the universe. I know. The first one I have to tell you, don't know, Dennis.
No.
Russian dance Tripak from the Nutcracker Suite. Didn't get that. Anyway, then came...
Felix.
What did he do? Kept on walking. Yeah. That's right. Felix kept on walking. Then, Ian, perhaps?
No, perhaps not.
Turkish Rondo from the Sonata in A by Mozart. Didn't get that. Then came, Dennis.
No.
The Stanley Steamer.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure you remember the song.
Golly, yes.
Then, the last two.
Oh, yes. My old
Kentucky Home.
Yes, thank you. And...
Look up, boys, here comes the copper.
Well, I got Policeman's Holiday.
Policeman's Holiday, yes. 3 out of 6, 1.5 marks. Fair enough. And a medley over the other side for John and Alfred Marks. Don't cry, Alfred.
Actually, I've done very well. Have you? I've written down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6. Well, under 1, did either of you get anything? John, you may have got this
the
one.
Unfinished Symphony.
Yes, by Schubert. Or I would have accepted the start of the Overture to Lilac Time if you'd felt in a difficult mood. Yes, right. Then
Schubert wrote a symphony, too bad he didn't finish it.
That's right. Then came a tune that I thought, looking at you, neither of you remembered, perhaps.
You're right. Well, I certainly do.
Do you know it?
At the Masquerade.
Masquerade, it was called. I'll Need You at the Masquerade. Nobody got that. Right. Then came...
Santa Lucia?
I didn't play that.
No.
No, a part of the Merry Widow Waltz.
I've written down the rhythm, I got it wrong.
Then came a tune everybody knows.
Yeah, I know, but what's the word?
Well,
what's the title?
Nobody knows that.
Let me hold you here in my arms.
No, it's titled
Pardon?
Les Mions d'Alicant, or Drigo's Serenade, it's sometimes called.
Is it?
Yes. A little bit of Ivor Novello came next. And John, you nearly got it, but you didn't look as though you had got it in the end. Waltz of My Heart. And finally... Yes. You amuse me. Didn't get it. The Laughing Song from Die Fledermaus.
Should have done that.
Half a mark. Only, I'm afraid, in the medley there, which may cost you dear. Oh, cost you dear it does not. We've got a tie at the moment. Alfred Marks, John Amis, Ian Wallace, Denis Norden, all with the same marks at the halfway stage. Right, we press on. Now for some singing. Ian, do you like westerns?
Yes.
Good. Here's a western. Ian, which western is that, and who's the character singing?
It's a very, very old western, that.
Well,
it's a sort of Italian western.
Yes, that's right.
Spaghetti western.
Spaghetti western. The first spaghetti western it is, isn't it?
And Must have been one of the first famous characters in American theatre, in a way, to be called Minnie.
That's right. And
she was even before Minnie Mouse.
Yes. The opera
is The Girl of the Golden West.
That's right, by Puccini, the character Minnie, the owner of the Polka Saloon in California. And she was singing there about her home life. And, Ian, you have two nice round marks.
Strongly, she sings to the sheriff, and who wants to marry her, and says no, because, you've got to love me like my mum and dad loved one another.
Oh, yes. What a good thing that's not my question to Dennis. But it isn't.
Oh, yes, well, pity really, because we didn't know the answer.
Got home sooner, wouldn't we? Yeah.
Dennis, the singer throughout this round is Leontine Price, whose voice we hear yet again now, though this time she's singing in German. Question for you, Dennis, is from which opera?
I think you're having me on.
Just a little bit, yes.
It isn't from an opera. It's from the Blue Angel.
Yes, that's right. And the song
is Falling in
Love Again. Marlene Dietrich's song. That's right. Only sung there by Miss Price. Yes, 2 marks to you. John, where does this pathetic scene take place? Marvellous stuff. But any idea, where does that scene take place?
What you might call a real bit of verismo, isn't it?
Yes.
In church?
No, very far from it. Very far from it. No. Does anybody in the audience know what it comes from? Yeah, no, not quite. I thought you were going to say it.
Is it Manolesco?
The first 2 letters... Manolesco, it is.
Yes, I thought... That's why I said I thought it was in church.
Yes. Well, no.
But it's in Le Havre or in the desert?
No. Or church. Yes. It's in the church, Le Havre, or the desert. In a church, isn't it? Yes. Well, if she's alone, lost and abandoned, where's it more likely to be?
In the desert.
Yes, thank you. Half a mark out of 1, and let me tell you, it takes place on a desert plain near New Orleans, where Manolesco dies alone, lost and abandoned. Not exactly Le Havre, not exactly in a church.
What a pity I forgot about the Western.
Yes. Yes, indeed. But that's the end of Westerns, as I turn to Alfred Marks and ask you, Alfred, what nasty shock is coming the way of this lady? Lovely bit of singing. Alfred.
Oh, you're being too kind, actually. It's an easy one.
It is a bit.
Yes, it's Cho-Cho San, waiting for Pinkerton, Lieutenant Pitt. The fleet's in.
Yes, the fleet's in.
The American fleet returns, and Cho-Cho San says, "One fine day," and he comes.
Yes.
That opera has quite I've got a soft spot for that opera, because when I was serving in His Majesty's Royal Air Force during the war, the last war, that is, I was stationed with my squadron in Naples when the San Carlo in Naples reopened the gala performance, and they did Butterfly. Interestingly enough, they issued tickets. I mean, it was a civilian affair, but they issued tickets to British forces in the area, and I was on the entertainment staff at my squadron, and by some fortune, I had a ticket. It was my job to distribute 10 tickets. I went along and they performed Butterfly, and Rina Gili, Beniamino Gili's daughter, played Cho-Cho Sam, played Butterfly, and she was as Japanese, as a pizza. And just as round, may I add. But she was delightful. It was a marvellous production. And the glowworms at night coming, I went round backstage and I saw the stage manager, and the glowworms, which were most effective, were done by some chap with a long pole and wire sticking out and little torch bulbs at the end. It was very effective. The whole thing was a marvellous evening. I remember there were tears everywhere. Yes. Nobody paid.
Well, it's a marvellous experience wherever you see it, I think, Butterfly.
Absolutely.
The nasty shock, incidentally, for purists, let me just mention, is that Pinkerton, her sailor husband, has come back with his American wife.
Indeed, yes. And she is with child.
Yes.
So, or no, she's had the child, isn't she?
So she's got a child and you've got a marker.
Right.
Now, finally, our contestants fall to singing. All the songs in this last round happen to be Neapolitan this week. Dennis, see if you can pick up 2 marks, you first, by picking up the song as I stop playing.
Funiculi, funicula, funiculi, funicu, and it goes up.
And I think you should have 2 marks. I think that's the first time in, however many years it is, that you haven't changed key in the course of your piece. all in E-flat. Beautiful. Now we move into D-flat. John, yours is in 3/4 time, or as the Italians would probably say these days, 3/4 time. Here it is.
Suo passeggeri, venite via, Santa Lucia, Santa Lucia.
Wouldn't it be perfectly marvellous if after all that it was the wrong song? It was indeed the right one, and you get 2 marks, of course. Alfred, after my introduction upon the Celesta, prepare to call your lover back to the southern part of the Gulf of Naples. Here we go.
Tu dicio padarira, la da di da 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 di da, la da di da 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 di da 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 di da da. Forgotten the words. Io da lontano da sto cuore, e da da di da da l'amore, ma c'è data fai su no, ma no, non darmi sto tormento. Torna surienta, fammi
More like a call to prayer than a call to a lover, actually.
Turn to the mezzanine, it's got. To the mezzanine. No, not the mezzanine, that can't be right.
2 marks to you. Ian, a song about Mary Mary. Not quite contrary, this one, but the one they sing about in Naples.
Oh Marie, quanto sono che perdo per te. Fammi dormire, abbracciato no poco per te. Oi Marie, quanto suona che perdo per te. Fammi dormire, oi Marie, oi Marie.
Well, it only remains for me to say that we've enjoyed the pleasure of your compania. And at the end of this edition of My Music, it's a victory by, sorry Alfred, 2.5 marks for Ian Wallace, Denis Norden.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Alfred Marks, Denis Norden and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the programme was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
You've been listening to My Music from the BBC, heard each week at this time. This is the WFMT Fine Arts Network.